want to know the only thing better than one enormous, awesome third-party pseudo-devastator toy? Here's a hint. It starts with a 2. Yes, this is Maketoys Giant Type 61, and he's mine, all mine. This is TFC Hercules, and he's Scotty's, all Scotty's. Yes, this behemoth is on loan from Scotty P, star of Schmacks and Scotty P's Ramblings of Tempered Amusement. We're doing sort of a crossover comparison review thingy. How much you want to bet we both end up preferring the versions we ourselves purchased? Anyway, now that I've spoiled the ending and blown the Gestalt mode comparison money shot, and you've all wandered off to watch pony videos, let's look at some limbs. This is TFC Neckbreaker and X-Graver, and they're kind of Exhibit A on why I got Giant instead. Look at the boxiness, the straight lines, the awkward hips and shoulders, the short arms, the odd proportions, the super saturated colors, the undisputed heavyweight champion of kibble, and the general lack of posability. What are you guys, Armada toys? Maketoys didn't name their individual robots, so I like to call these guys Crush Boner and Trash Picker. And I must admit they're a little on the generic side. There's nothing wrong with them, really, and the posability is better than it has any right to be on a bot with basically untransformed tread legs. They're just not especially exciting. It's particularly sad to see neither company turned in a bone crusher worthy of the original, with its beautifully simple transformation and iconic beefy scoop chest. And why is Neckbreaker wearing a bib? Let's have a look at vehicle mode. If it's a size contest, TFC wins this easily. But if it's an actually looking like a bulldozer and a steam shovel competition, you've got to give it to Team Giant. I'm getting the Armada vibe again from the Herculoids. They're just too big and bright and boxy and alien to fit in with the classics. I'm sure some portion of this guy's problem is me not transforming him right, but I think it's a very small portion. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about forearms. What TFC did here, using the treads as Herc's forearms, is very, very clever. But let's not pretend it completely eliminates parts forming from the equation. While you can store the hands on both robot and vehicle mode, you have to take it off and move it around every time you want to transform him. In fact, there's a lot of taking things off and moving them around going on with Team Hercules. More on that later. And then there were legs. This is TFC Structor and Mad Blender versus Maketoys Le Scrapier and Sir Mixes quite often. In most continuities, Mixmaster and Scrapper are always my favorite Constructicons. Not sure why. And these two sets are no exception, with the exception of one exception. It's this guy. Remember how I was bitching about 5 seconds ago about having to take bits off and move them around? Yeah, he's the king of that. His mixing drum explodes into a pile of fiddly little unconvincing weapons, and getting them back together again is like homework. And even if you don't want to use the terrible, terrible weapons, you still have to take the drum off to transform him. There's nowhere to store it intact in robot mode unless you want to see his Waspinator impression. Ooh, you're getting so many demerits for this. And things don't get any better in alt mode. Box up front, misshapen lump of a mixing drum in back, visible hinges everywhere. And if Scotty didn't have these amazing repro labels on here, this whole drum would be one big wad of oversaturated, under-detailed green. He's not my cup of tea, is what I'm saying. He doesn't really look very G1-y, but at the same time they haven't added anything creative or new. If there was a Kinsey scale from loving homage to inspired reimagining, he'd clock right in the middle at boring failure. Structor here inherited all the handsome genes in this particular set of legs. There's not a lot going on here besides blatant G1ism, but sometimes that works so well even I can't object to it. He's easily my favorite Hercbot. Although, having said that, you may notice his cockpit is on the side of his leg. That's because you have to unpeg it to transform him on account of the kibble, and I can't figure out where it's supposed to go. So it goes there. On the Maketoys side, they didn't do anything with Mixie's drum except give it these mysterious slits that don't do anything but totally seem like they do, but they made up for it by doing some really interesting things with his legs. Nobody but me would have minded if he just had cubes for legs. Like this jerk. But they went the extra mile to do something interesting and dynamic. I've got nothing but good things to say about this guy. His hat's a little weird, but if he didn't have it, where would he keep his missiles? And will you look at this scrapper? This is just a stunner. Go on, admire him. I'll wait. He's undeniably Scrapper, but he's been updated and improved like all the best classics toys like Cup and Wreck-Gar. His transformation is no picnic, and his arm articulation suffers from an excess of shovel in the way, but I love a bot who manages to be clearly made of vehicle parts without being boxy. And speaking of boxy, this is TFC Dr. Crank, and he is the box master. Maketoys' Hook is a tad boxy as well, but mostly from the front and the waist up. And he's much better in alt mode. Dr. Crank is just a rectangle with wheels with another rectangle on top, but I will grant that he hides the head better than Hook does amid all that rectangularity. They've both got their lift arms dangling off them, but, that's fine, really. You can move Hooks around if you want and put it on his arm or on his back, but, I don't know. Neither really bothers me. Dudes turn into cranes. What are they going to do? And then there was long haul, or more specifically heavy labor and carry always. It's interesting that these two are so similar considering how little they have in common with G1 long haul. They've both gone for this kind of beefy squat look. I can dig it. Strangely enough, this guy's one of the most articulated out of either set due to these weird shoulder swivels. Lets him do all kinds of fun things with his arms. And really, isn't that what arms are for? The Herculeans have most of the joints you'd expect, but their lack of feet or ankles, combined with their general boxiness, makes it hard to do much with them besides the classic angry squat. Alt modes tell a familiar story. TFC is bigger, Maketoys is more realistic and detailed. Although in this case it might just be down to Carrie's tasteful black legs and grill as opposed to Labor's Ninja Turtle colors. Why do I keep harping on realistic alt modes when these guys will spend 95% of their lives in combined form? Because being Devastator is all about being a big robot made of realistic construction vehicles. That's his shtick. Most of the members don't even transform out of vehicle mode to combine. He's supposed to have tank track epaulets. He's supposed to have crane scaffolding up around his grill. He's supposed to have a bulldozer scoop up here and a shovel down here getting in the way of his hand. Start taking that stuff away and he just looks like a big pile of green boxes. And I haven't even mentioned the shell-forming woolly mammoth in the room. The price. Giant is between $200 and $250 cheaper than Herc. Think about that. That's 2 Hegemons. That's iGear, Ironhide, and Ratchet. That's all the Toys R Us Asian exclusive Voyagers, and Deluxes, and Scouts, and Legends, and the first edition Voyagers, and a bacon cheeseburger. And while a lot of this stuff is subjective, I don't think anyone could rationally argue that Herc is better than Giant, plus a whole pile of other toys, plus lunch. But having said all that, this guy is by no means a bad toy. He's huge, full of presence, and a ton of fun. Except this guy. This guy can go fart. And huge is an important thing for Devastator to be, but the size advantage just doesn't offset the visual, creative, and quality advantages held by Giant, especially when you consider the price. And when you consider individual bot modes and articulation, the TFC guys are like a no-footed, no-ankled man in a butt-kicking contest. Well, that's probably enough horrible things said about the rare and expensive toy my awesome friend generously lent me. I'm off for now. See you next time a review topic has aged just enough to no longer be interesting. Thanks again to Scotty for loaning me Herc even knowing I was going to roast him. You rule. It's official. Now kiss.